this country. People don't know the country.
Don't judge me.
It's not judgment, it's a statement.
I don't know Cross River State that much. I've been there once, but we didn't get to go around, you know. But Akwa Ibom, yes, we were able to really understand the place fully. But Cross River State, you know, it seems very green. You know, it looks like a place that probably has a lot of rainfall. Green, like a lot of greenery. And then, of course, looks like really pleasant weather in Cross River State. And very welcoming people, because I know that from that part of Nigeria, we are very welcoming people with great food, great soups, you know? And very
Ayo, why are you smiling?
Nice people. Those are the little things that I know about Cross River State. But let's take a look at what it is that we are looking at right now. Different parts of Cross River State. We have 1111 roundabouts that we've shown already, and the technical roundabout in Calabar municipality. And then, of course, the parliamentary extension, 8 miles. These are some of the scenes that we're looking at today. I'm looking forward to coming to Cross River State again and actually enjoying this city, not just going there for work, but actually going and having a good time in Cross River State.
What's wrong with having the best of both worlds, Kayla? Come on. What's wrong with having the best of both worlds? I mean, you do some work and then you take some pleasure. Nothing wrong with it. And please don't mind Chamberlain trying to judge you.
Just
like he himself has even been to Cross River State in how many years now?
Well, he's still loving the pictures.
Don't even go there.
It does look beautiful. And now you made me want to come to this state now.
Well, I guess we'll hear him in a little later. Okay, guys. So I need to ask him another question, so he will just speak to both, if he will. So Ayo and Kayla, let me ask both of you.
Oh boy, here we go.
But Chamberlain, you're going to have to first of all explain what I've just seen. Is that someone you know? I don't know, a cousin or something. I don't know, but you're just going to have to explain that later. But let me quickly speak to that one where you were trying to how do I put this now? Place shade or place shame Kayla. But Kayla, I don't mind Chamberlain. I don't even think he himself has been to Cross River State in how many years? And besides, what you just showed, well, thankfully you called it 1111 roundabout. For God's sake, you aren't showing Tinapa. You aren't showing Obudu Cattle Ranch. How am I going to know where you're showing in River State? In the Cross River State, by the way. But hey, so it's a beautiful one, all the same. So, so you want to ask me a question? Now, Chamberlain, I'm waiting for that question right this moment. Okay. Well, while you are waiting to share your question with me, the place is in Cross River State, Obudu Cattle Ranch. There's a national museum in that axis as well. I think that one is in Calabar. Tinapa Resort is there and all those things. So, but there is a very concerning thing that Chamberlain mentioned the other time when he talked about the fact that people don't know their country. Well, yeah, you can say that. We've shown some stuff on the skyline when we open this program every day. Sometimes you wonder, wait a minute, is that in Lagos? Is that in Nigeria? What part of Nigeria is that? I saw a picture some years ago, and someone told me, if they told me that that place was China, I would not deny it. I wouldn't even argue. It's such a lush green, a lot of beautiful flowers on this terrain. And I was told it's somewhere in Adamawa State. I said, no, it's not possible. I said, yes. That in fact, the only challenge between, around that, going to that area is access. And I just said, look, wait. These are the opportunities that state governments have to be able to explore. And unfortunately, every time we see or hear something about our nation, Nigeria, most of the things we hear, most of the things we put out as people are the things that aren't working. And it's sad. I have seen some monuments in ancient Kano monuments, and I'm wondering, gosh, if anyone came here to shoot a movie and say it was shot in ancient China, no one is going to argue because it's so beautiful. I saw another one. I think that one's in Kaduna or Katsina. That one we haven't shown it, and I think someone is making a movie. Nigerian is making a movie, and they're going to show those parts. Beautiful, color-graded pictures of these parts of Kaduna State. I'm wondering, wait a minute, this is in Kaduna State? If anyone told me that this was shot in Japan or in Tokyo or somewhere, no one is going to argue. It's so beautiful. So we have places in this country that we can explore. All we need is for the enabling environment for these things to be opened up for people to take advantage of. People all over the world are looking for places to go. They are looking for tourism potential and all of those things. It's about time we gave it to them, okay? I think, Chamberlain, are you there now? So you wanted to ask me a question. I think it's a good time to ask that question now.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the minister is going to be briefing the diplomats in terms of what is going on in the country about all of these protests. Remember that comment about foreigners sponsoring protests, this flag, that flag. So I think the minister will have some information in case they are worried concerning what is going on today. So this is going to be happening. And it was interesting, guys. I saw the government issued a travel advisory to London as a result of that protest, asking Nigerians to be cautious and wary because of what's going on, the protests going on there as well. So there's another scenario that will be playing up today in the country as well. Another update or conversation or briefing that is also expected to happen today. So regional security. So you'll get to find that as a result of some of what is going on in the country as well. So I think the defense chiefs, they've been having meetings now, key defense officials, and interestingly, all of them are coming together at different offices of theirs. So they're talking. I think the first part was talking to Nigerians. Now they'll be talking to the ECOWAS community in terms of what is going on. So extending that regional cooperation to see if we'll come for something.
And to add to this, so these meetings with the ECOWAS Chiefs of Defense Staff have been going on. And that's because they're trying to come up with some kind of regional force. And the modalities for the regional force, the force is supposed to help fight unconstitutional seizing of power in ECOWAS. Now, the modalities of the force is what's being discussed. How many are they going to be? Who's going to do the funding? Where's the bulk of the funding going to come from? Where are the staffers going to come from? What kind of equipment? The Chief of Defense Staff in Nigeria was spearheading this. In fact, the white paper that was released, I think in the second to last meeting, was by Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, and then, he basically came up with two alternatives for what the regional force is supposed to be like. And the conversation with Chiefs of Defense Staff and finance ministers. I remember at the time we asked the Minister of Defense here in Nigeria, we had to ask him, where's this funding going to come from? I said, we're still discussing that. Because one of the fears people had was we don't want a situation where all of the funding is coming from Nigeria again. So yes, it's one in a series of meetings to come up with this regional force that is supposed to fight insecurity and stop unconstitutional taking of governments in ECOWAS. I think also happening today, we do have some business coming up today. And it's from the Minister of National Development, Information and National Orientation, meeting with the presidential aide, of course, on community engagement to discuss key concerns. But there's also the talk about searching for a lifeline for small business amidst headwinds. And I think we're going to be hearing a lot of that from all the business programs that we're going to have.
We all need lifelines, I tell you.
we all need these lifelines. We need to be able to survive the times that we're in. So those are some of the major stories that we'll be looking out for and events that are happening today. But of course, our conversation is going to focus a lot on the protest and what the fallouts are. So stick around for that one, but I think we do have to look at some
Let's
papers.
also hear you, by the way. Don't forget, we'd love to hear your voice. Where are you? What's going on where you are? What do you think of all of what's happening? Give us a shout. Just write us. Use that email account you find at the bottom of your screen. So let's take you through some of the dailies here this morning. Ayo.
Stories around the protests are still very much in the news this morning. This Nigerian newspaper begins with protest. FG places sponsors on watch list. Military will go after enemies of state, defense chief. We're committed to defense of nation's integrity. That's according to the CAS. Find the details on the inside pages of this Nigerian newspaper this morning. And Daily Independent has the same story. End bad governance protest. FG places diaspora sponsors on watch list, freezes their accounts. Use of foreign flights during protest coup calls capital offense. That's according to the police. Who authorized lethal force on protesters will be held to account, according to Atiku. IGP says police military didn't use live ammunition against protesters. CSOs demand release of Lenin, others detained by security agents. Details on the inside pages. At the bottom of the page is perhaps something you call some good news to create 1.4 million jobs. FG malls revamping Nigeria's textile industry. That's what the picture is about. Find the details continue on the inside pages of the paper today. Daily Times newspaper has this one. End bad governance protests. Security agents and manhunt for foreign sponsors make arrests in Kano. Kaduna Jigawa protesters defy curfew, raise Honorable Gome's house. APC secretariats, billboards attacked in Rivers, Zamfara. That story is on page 2 of the paper today. And if you look at the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, same story, different angle, totally. Protest, how 4 teenagers bride-to-be were killed in Kano, Zaria. CSOs want security agents involved prosecuted. FG places sponsors on watch list. Use of force against protesters, crime against humanity, according to Atiku. We're investigating incidents, as from the army and the police. Find the details on the inside pages. And if you look at the front page of the Nigerian News Direct today, end bad governance. FG cracks down on diaspora sponsors, freezes bank accounts. All sponsors now on watch list, according to Immigration CG. NABA chief vows to crush subversive elements. As protest roadblocks appear in Rivers, weekend residents targeted. Use lethal force on protesters, face trial for crimes against humanity. Article warns service chiefs. The front page of the Nigerian Tribune has the same story. Sponsors of protest on watch list. FG says, we have blocked external funding for protests, according to IGP. We're after only enemies of state, says the CDS. Suspension of duties, taxes on imported pharmaceuticals, food will reduce prices. That's coming from the CG of Customs. Other stories this morning, look at the front page of the Guardian newspaper. It's something that's gaining momentum. FAC allocation. Citizens wallow in misery as governor cede duties to FG amid 5.34 trillion naira cuts. That story is on page 6. The infographics on the front page will give you a fair idea of what's been talked about right there. Blueprint newspaper has this one. Tax import duty-free food items to be cleared next week. That's according to the federal government. Assures policy will crash food prices. Moves to revamp cotton textile industry, targets 1.4 million jobs. The front page of Business Day newspaper has this one on its front page. CBN steps in to save Naira with retail dollar auction. What does that mean? Data's on the front page. It continues on the inside pages. And those are the papers we have for you this morning.
Since the End Bad Governance protest commenced on August the 1st, some states in the northern part of Nigeria have seen more than others, particularly Kaduna, Kano, Gombe, Borno, and Bauchi states. The essence of the protest was, however, lost to the activities of hoodlums who went berserk, looting and destroying properties in some states on day 4 and 5.
Well on ground.
The state governments responded with the declaration of 24-hour curfews. This was followed by convening of Security Council meetings in various states in the north. In Plateau State, after the Security Council meeting, the Commissioner of Police announced the arrest of 14 violators of the curfew.
Everybody should remain indoors. Those that are trekking, henceforth we are going to be picking them. And so far we have made 14 arrests.
Also in Bauchi State, police says it has arrested 3 suspects in connection with the violence in some parts of the metropolis on day 5.
So far, 3 suspects have been arrested and a flag suspected to be Russian flag was also recovered.
Meanwhile, the Gombe State government held what it called a high-level meeting to bolster the security of lives and properties. There were some major resolutions.
Council noted the concern of the public regarding the activities of scrap sellers, popularly known as Babambola or Bola Jari, and directed the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice to come out with operational modalities to regulate their activities.
Additionally, the Gombe State Police Command arrested 111 persons in connection with violence since the protest commenced.
A total number of 111 suspects were arrested and no loss of life was recorded.
The governor of Adamawa State, in a broadcast, appealed to the federal government to address the demands of the protesters. Some residents were quite pleased with the governor's plea.
After the broadcast, the state become calm, and then because you face the say what people want to hear, the reality. So the fact that there's hunger in the land, that we are trying to see how they can reduce poverty and hunger. I think that is what people want to hear.
It's a different scenario in Katsina State, where some Muslim faithful chose to go spiritual, praying for God's intervention to end economic hardship and other challenges in Nigeria.
All right, so to give us some perspectives on this protest and looking at some of the twists and turns about the protest, we've got 2 gentlemen here with us. Mr. Lanre Issa-Onilu is the Director General, National Orientation Agency. And we've also got Ibrahim Abdullahi, Deputy National Public Secretary of the PDP. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Well, I know there's a lot of talk about, in terms of the orientation of all of this, but first of all, how does your office even see all of what is happening in the country at the moment?
Yeah, well, I would say this is the outcome of 3 decades of inaction in terms of value orientation in this country. If we had that in the last 3 decades, we would not be where we are. And that goes not just for the citizens, also for the leadership. You know, for 3 decades, this country has done virtually nothing in terms of providing a guideline, you know, in terms of values that all of us must uphold and respect. And so the citizens that we have now are angry, not just hungry. And you can also understand that. And sometimes when you have hope, it may even mitigate whatever anger you have. But there seems not to be hope because we have not communicated hope, you know, in the last 3 decades. And people have waited. So you can't really blame the citizens, you know, at this stage. So that is now for us to emphasize that need for value orientation, so that whoever is in the leadership and the citizens also would know that we have a role to play in ensuring that all of us put in a very, you know, good shift in terms of how we approach, you know, governance, how we approach citizenship.
Mr. Abdullahi, how do you see it?
Well, I completely disagree with the DG with regards to the reference that he made of 3 decades of accumulated grievance. That cannot be correct because for the 16 years of PDP, we have had a democratic environment where the views of Nigerians were freely, expressed. You will remember even the sitting president in 2012 leading protest everywhere, the voices of dissent that we had way back, which seem to have been suppressed. Where are the Wole Soyinkas? Where are the Erufais? Where are all of those people, Femi Falanas, that were on the street in 2012 for a review of this same fuel subsidy or withdrawal of fuel subsidy that was not anywhere close to what we have today? I cannot agree with him completely because 16 years of PDP as a party, we ran this country on a single-digit inflation. We were able to secure debt cancellation. We were able to provide a democratic environment where fundamental rights of citizens were expressed freely. We created the anti-corruption agencies that is today used against some of the political actors in the opposition. We've done everything possible to provide this a sane ambience where democracy will flourish. As at the time we left power, Nigeria was the 3rd fastest growing economy in the world and the fastest in Africa. Today, we are the poverty capital of the world. So it is the failure of a defective system, the 8 years of Buhari and with this horrible 1 year of the APC. That's where we are where we are.
Do you think that your message, the message that you're trying to pass across might be lost on a lot of other people, probably the same way he doesn't agree?
Oh, let me be upfront. I'm not here to represent APC.
I know.
I run an agency that is non-partisan. So I stand here for the country.
Yeah, so that message.
Yeah, no, I need to clear that so that it doesn't think we are here to throw brickbat. NOA is a non-partisan agency. We have offices in the state where there are PDP, Labour, governing, and we represent them. That is part of the role we play, and that is what our act says. So we should be focused on the issues. Now, I'd like to take your question again.
In terms of the message that the NOA is trying to pass across,
could
it also be that it might also be lost on a lot of people who may not agree with the message that you probably want to pass across to them, probably the same way he doesn't see it that way?
Yeah, see, I will tell you, I said 3 decades, and that takes care of whatever political party that was in office, whether PDP, APC, or whatever party. And I insist that the last 3 decades, we have the result of our actions and inactions. And this is the time for us to refocus, as a country and do the right thing. The message we are passing to the country is the need for us to have a value system. You cannot go anywhere if you don't even have an identity, identify who you are, and know what are the good things that you're supposed to represent. We're in a country where we have no guidebook in terms of orientation. So as far as NOA is concerned, our focus is to create a value system. Because if leadership has a set of values that they uphold, we will not find ourselves where we are, irrespective of political party that brings you to office. Human beings are human beings. The important thing is for you to get there and be guided. If you're a Christian, you have a guidebook. If you're a Muslim, you have a guidebook. And that give you that kind of guideline on how to conduct yourself wherever you find yourself. And you always look back to want to be the best of a Christian, the best of a Muslim. It's the same way a country requires that kind of situation where you are guided and you have a value system that you...
with a lot of respect for your office, but there are still several questions when people sometimes even ask, is there really any need for the NOA's office? Because the biggest example that anybody can do is, look, what they do and how they address the economic challenges people are facing. If they do that and lead by example.
So how do you lead by example? That is orientation, that is value. To even have a country, to build Nigeria, you must build Nigerians. If you do not build Nigerians, you cannot build Nigeria. I'll give you recent examples. If you go to Third Mainland Bridge now, you're going to have, a fantastic road you've never seen over decades. It's been rehabilitated. But barely 2 weeks after, a Nigerian climbed onto the bridge and began to remove the railings. What's that? Lack of values.
Not economic.
Second
not
Niger
hunger.
Bridge. Huh?
Not hunger.
If you are hungry, the next thing is not to destroy what belongs to you. God, that is not what you're supposed to do. If you're hungry, you're not to destroy what belongs to you, because it belongs to us. Second Niger Bridge, somebody went there and removed the railings, or the metal, on the bridge, to sell for how much? So we all are responsible for this, irrespective of whatever political party, and we have the opportunity now to ensure we do the right thing, create the value system, and uphold those values.
We'll come back to this conversation in a moment, but we need to go to a quick commercial break and be right back.
At Access Holdings, we are heading into the next phase of our evolution. And with our rights issue, you get an increased stake in it. From the 8th of July to the 14th of August, you can get your share of over 17 billion shares at 19 naira 75 kobo per share. That's one new ordinary share to every 2 shares held. Visit theaccesscorporation.com to subscribe. Access Holdings, where financial solutions connect the world.
Volley, party. And then bring the men, we could solve problem for we state, we could make us happy. Volley, party. Better things go flow from post to post as it's supposed to be normally.
Vote Olumide Osaigbovo Akpata as governor. Vote Alhaji Asama Kadiri for deputy governor Edo State. Vote Labour Party.
At Access Holdings, we are heading into the next phase of our evolution. And with our rights issue, you get an increased stake in it. From the 8th of July to the 14th of August, you can get your share of over 17 billion shares at 19 naira 75 kobo per share. That's one new ordinary share to every 2 shares held. Visit theaccesscorporation.com to subscribe. Access Holdings, where financial solutions connect the world.
We are hiring. Have you got what it takes to join a dynamic global energy company of choice? Are you ready to experience a career driven by innovation and excellence? NNPC Limited is looking for young talents and result-oriented experienced professionals to make valuable contributions to NNPC Limited's business objectives. Hurry now and apply at careers.nnpcgroup.com. Application closes on the 20th of August 2024. Recruitment is strictly on merit.
Come on, let's go.
We are thrilled to have you on board as we chart the course for our next chapter. We're inviting you to take up your rights in full for 19 naira 75 kobo per share. From the 8th of July to 14th of August, take advantage of the chance to acquire one more ordinary share for every 2 shares in your portfolio. Visit www.theaccesscorporation.com to subscribe. Access Holdings, where financial solutions connect the world.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, we've got 2 gentlemen here with us, Larry Nilu and Ibrahim Abdullahi. Mr. Abdullahi, let me ask you, when people who actually think they've got a reason to protest are out there saying, yes, the authorities, federal and state governors need to do something about the economy, and then the information filters through saying security agencies say they have identified some top politicians from Bauchi, Kano, Kaduna, Katsina, who are sponsoring, they think they are part of the sponsors of the protest, and it kind of deflates that for a lot of people, which then leads to the question, can one then say this protest is not that organic after all?
I think the crux of the matter should be allowing the protests in the first place to, come on board, because a government that has the wherewithal and the intelligence at its disposal, and in fairness to these protesters, they had, notified the state that they were going on this 1 month before they embarked on it. It was clear that the government did not take them seriously. We are actually, as a party, condemning the aspect that is violent, those who have stolen the situation to unleash mayhem on their fellow citizens who are also receiving it the harsh way from this inept and clueless APC-led government. The truth of the matter is that it's a bottled-up anger that have accumulated within the last 1 decade, and that is the part I was disagreeing earlier with the DG, who said that it's a 3 decades frustration of the citizens. No, it's a 1 decade, 8 years of Buhari and 1 year plus of Ahmed Bola Tinubu. Nigerians are very resilient people.
Do you agree that politicians have a substantial chunk of the decay in the system and how the economy has run over time?
I will agree with you, actually, but then we're talking about whether Nigerians have been resilient in time past. Yes, they have been. Nigerians had seen hope in this democracy. They had believed that, okay, given it time frame, it will come and work. It will work for the good of the citizens. They were confident. They were loyal, law-abiding citizens. But when it gets to a level where you cannot ventilate, you are suppressed, bottled up anger, it gets to what we call breaking point. You can no longer
suppressed.
The citizens, of course, you and I. You're talking about likelihood of you even joining it. And that is true. Every right-thinking Nigerian should begin to contemplate whether... But we will do, you and I will do our own
taking a lot
decently.
Out of context.
I don't understand. Can I say a word here?
Where have I gone out of context?
Can I say a word here?
You're saying I'm talking about genuine protests. No, I mean,
please,
just asking questions.
Chamberlain, I would like to say that this hearing is actually unfair. Because I'm not here to defend by the law that set up the agency that I run. I can't sit down here when it begins to be partisan, and I cannot be partisan.
No, you don't have to
hold
just
on,
speak to the issues that concerns your office.
I can't speak to the issue when it continues to say things that are fallacious, about saying 8 years and 1 year. And I don't want him to push me into where I will be breaking the law that set up my agency. Are you getting the point? Because what everything is saying is absolutely fallacious. We are not aliens to this country. We are all here for the 16 years of PDP. If I use the tongue of myself as the former National Publicity Secretary of APC, I will be talking of the years of low-cost, 16 years of low-cost. With the evidence is all over there. They wouldn't have lost the election, if they were that good. You understand? So the foundation for whatever we have now started actually within the 16 years period. And this is enough I will say about this issue of partisanship. I run an agency that speaks for the whole of this country. So when you bring somebody to peer with me, you bring somebody who wants to speak for the good of the country, not somebody who wants to say fallacious things to look good to Nigerians.
He didn't say he doesn't want the good of the country.
No.
But the thing about this is, clearly, almost a lot of people in the country agree that we have a problem.
Let's talk about the issue of protest.
But how to fix it?
Let's talk about the issue of protest. To say that people who wanted to protest were suppressed. This is the government for 3 weeks was engaging, looking for who actually were the leaders of the protest so that they could engage. The lawyers came forward, they had meeting with them. For wherever they spoke, they said you have the right to protest, but please, we suspect there will be violence. Based on intelligence. Has that not come out, to be the truth? So if we were wise enough and we were interested in the good of this country, were we not going to be thinking of how to avert what has happened? To say now that a particular party is sympathizing with people who have lost their lives, whose properties have been destroyed, is to say that that party didn't think well. Because they ought to have known that this will happen, because we all said it.
Yeah, but...
You understand? So let us leave that. If we want to speak for the good of the country, I'm game.
But the thing about that is this.
Partisanship is a waste of time.
But the thing about that is this. Much as the law guarantees people's right to protest, but where lots of people are drawing the line is when people begin to vandalize private property.
Exactly.
I think most political parties that have come here have said the same thing.
Yeah.
That if you vandalize private property, that is criminal.
Yeah, but
that is not acceptable.
But when some leaders of this country were saying, please, let's look for some other means of engaging, because they foresaw this.
No, but
some other leaders in this country were urging them on.
Yeah, but you know that it would be very difficult for you to ask people not to protest. For instance, you know that there are people who genuinely feel hunger in the country. They genuinely want to say, look, I need to get my voice heard. Yeah. And there will always be. It's in every part of the country, every part of the world.
Yeah, we recognize that.
Where people will want to take advantage. So then, you can't, because of that, say, well, if you want to do genuine protest, don't come out.
No, that don't come out. That's why government eventually provided places where they could do it. So that if you just do it here, it will not give the people who are going to hijack it and have foment trouble that opportunity to do so. But some of them didn't listen. We have all seen the result. So what we should be talking about, if we truly love this country now, is to pull back and look at where we went wrong and ensure that, whatever they are saying about hunger, you are talking of a government within 1 year, because my agency is to communicate government policies, irrespective of whatever political party.
So do you think there's a failing in that communication?
That's not failing.
If people knew.
Yeah, no, it's not about if people knew. If people do not have ulterior motives. Now, there are people who are genuinely complaining, and there are people who are taking advantage of that situation to want to, cause great chaos in the country for whatever reason, not because of hunger. There are those who are complaining because of hunger, genuinely. And I can tell you that in the last we had student loan 10 years ago. Nobody will be talking or complaining about purchasing power, because that will have taken care of a very big aspect of whatever your out-of-pocket expenses are. If we had credit scheme, consumer credit scheme in the last 10 years, we will not be here. Or in the last 3 decades, we will not be here complaining of all of this. If we had taken care of the issue of subsidy, we will not be here. If people didn't have the political will to do that...
Now, that is where the bone of contention is.
Yeah, if we didn't have the political will to do
about that subsidy, you know that's an area that, since you brought it up, is a hugely controversial part.
Yeah, it's not controversial because everybody agreed on it. All the 3 candidates,
but the ACN at the time didn't agree.
No. You see, when you are removing subsidy, and you're providing alternative, it's different from when you're saying I'm removing subsidy without providing alternative.
Okay, let's fast track to this government.
Okay.
When that announcement came through, because the bone of contention at the time, when they see the issue they raised was, no, you can't do this, you have to tell the people this. And at that time, I also remember there were campaigns. Former CBN governor, former coordinating minister of economy, they were trying to address the country, talking about why we needed to get it off. And Labour at that time, I said, put in place this measure and that measure. But this time, that announcement came on the first day, which they even told us behind the scenes that it was not in script, that he went off script.
He didn't go off script. He only announced a policy that was already in place.
No, but the former president suspended implementation. PIA was there during Buhari's time.
Not suspension. There was no budget for it from June 2023.
But the law was there.
Which law?
The PIA law was there, which guaranteed removal of subsidy. But the president at that time, too, suspended implementing that particular clause.
You're not getting the point.
What's the
From June, there was not a penny in the budget.
From June?
Subsidy.
June.
So the president,
announced it in May.
May 29th. The following day, you're already in June.
But Mr. Leo, are you telling me that the president couldn't have said, you could have left it out on that day, come in and say, okay, you know what, look, this is what I'm going to do. Rally the troops so that when the announcement comes through, everybody's on the same page. Even NNPC themselves didn't see it coming, according to what we heard.
We didn't see what's coming. Did NNPC put any money for subsidy? There was no money for subsidy, whether the president announced it or not. There was no budget for subsidy by the government of President Muhammadu Buhari. It was on its way out. No budget. So whether the president announced it or didn't announce it, there was no penny put in that budget for subsidy. So the issue is there any alternative this government has provided? That is what we should be talking about. And I think what the media should be promoting is the alternative. To run away from even this dependence on
Isn't it when the media see alternative, they promote what this?
No, I will tell you, if you have not seen it, I will tell you that in the last 8 months, this government has vigorously And the evidence is there. If we have a publication we call The Explainer, the last 3 editions, we publish thousands of conversion centers where you can convert your vehicle to CNG, where you spend 40% of whatever you are spending on fuel as we speak.
Mr. Larry.
So hold on, please. Let me wrap up that.
We have...
And then there's 1 million kits going around now. A lot of private investors are also going into that. So we must, rather than talking of how to bring down back subsidy, we should be talking of how to run away from dependence on oil completely.
Mr. Larry, The Explainer. What is the reach of The Explainer?
See, The Explainer is just one of several ways we engage with the citizens.
What's the reach of
It's for the elite. And there are other platforms we use.
But that's the thing. We're talking about a people who are not the elite. A people who look at the elite.
Are you listening to me? I said there are several platforms. The Explainer is targeting a particular group. Okay. As I speak to you now, if you come to NOA and you ask me who in your local government, who is the chairperson of the Tailor Association, I will give you the contact. We are reaching out in every local government. We are reaching out to real people who are not in social media.
Because we've had this conversation before.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we talked about when we had this conversation was about grassroots communication.
Yes.
A lot of people are not aware of a lot of the things going on.
You have not done any survey. As I speak to you on my table.
Because when they hear, we can tell that when they don't know.
You cannot tell. Let me tell you why you cannot tell.
When they hear the president during his speech say, this is what we are doing, this is what we're doing, it sounds nice. What they want to know is how is it affecting my pocket? Yeah. That conversation about how these policies impact them and the time frame is one of the things that we've been looking at the National Orientation Agency to wonder how much communication are you doing?
Yeah, because
that people don't know
on television
these
and
things.
you think everything happens on television. No. As I speak to you, we have offices in all the local governments and we are engaging people in real time, going to people's homes, meeting with the stakeholders. You can't see that on television. You can't see that on Facebook or Twitter. We are doing all of that at the grassroots. But people, when you see something happening on television, you assume it is not happening. You know, this protest would have been worse if we are not engaging people at the grassroots. And that's why it is not organic. That's why you will know some people are actively pressing some buttons somewhere to ensure that this happened. Otherwise, it wasn't an uprising by the people. No, it was not.
You know, we talked about a values charter that the president was supposed to sign this year. Has that values charter been signed?
Not signing. You don't sign.
Has it been launched, I think?
You know, it will be unveiled, but we are implementing. Unveiling is just the
because
ceremonial.
That values charter, you know, we've been talking about human capital development in Nigeria. And you have said it several times, that the first way to change our country is to change the mindset of the people.
Absolutely.
When we're looking at these lootings and things going on, it starts to make us wonder, these are people. How did they get here? Why are their mindsets? Because everyone is hungry, but I'm not going to go and steal rail tracks.
Yeah, exactly.
But there are people who will steal, who will vandalize. How do we change that mindset? What is your office doing in that regard?
That's just what you just referred to now as the value charter. So this is a country that since independence, we do not have any institution to nurture the citizen. Any country, any serious country in the world creates institutions of nurturing. And it is these institutions that you come across that provide you the guidelines, bring you up, you know, as model citizens, you know, instill in you those values that will guide you, whether you are a leader or you are a citizen. We do not have. So, and that's what this government is trying to put in place. We have 7 institutions that are going to be put in place that wherever you go, you will come across these institutions of nurturing. And people will grow up knowing what their rights and responsibilities are and properly brought up, you know, as model citizens, as Nigerians with identity, with values that we can define. You know, that's what this is all about.
Apologies, we need to just clear some things. So please, let's hear you about what you think of this.
Well, it's just sad, the narrative that is being shown by my brother, the DG. You see, clearly speaking, it got to a point where he had to now wear his previous cap of being the spokesperson of the party.
No, so you needed to clarify some things because of the angle you were going.
I don't think there's any clearance here. What I said here, I still stand to be corrected. Go and conduct opinion poll with Nigerians. You would agree with me that 99.9% of Nigerians will agree with what I'm saying here. It's not enough for somebody because you occupy a public office, and the laws established in the National Orientation Agency will not expect you to come and be speaking for the government at the detriment of the citizen. That is it. We have had MAMSA, we have had other people occupy this office before my brother Isa, and then we've seen how they have done with the responsibility. Much as, yes, your employers need to be satisfied, and that is what you're doing here, the fact needs to be told. I cannot be gagged into saying that it's a partisan. No, I cannot come here and be expected to be speaking in support of a government that has inflicted penury on Nigerians and as an opposition party.
I mean, I know that in many ways, you would want to talk, and I hear people from PDP do this quite a lot. Oh, it's 8 years. But the truth is, as opposition, do you believe that you have done your bit in nation building as the opposition? Is there a shadow cabinet? Is there someone from the PDP? Is there something from the opposition that says this is how things should have been done? Let us try this, let us try that. Constituting a shadow cabinet as we see around the world. Is there anything like that from the PDP?
Of course. That's why I'm here. I'm one of the cabinet members of the PDP who are now, churning out the narrative out here. We are doing what we need to do within the confines of the law. Like yesterday, I was discussing with the Rise, and a question sprang up at a point. Why are we not being heard like APC did in 2012, 13, 14, which led to the collapse of the PDP government? I said, no, we are guided by civility and decorum. We do our things differently. We cannot be expected. Where are those ones who were churning out the propaganda way back? The Erufais, the Lai Mohammed, all of them. It ended in lies and falsehood. The government came into being after bringing the PDP behemoth after 16 years. And then they now ran 8 years.
Are you blaming the people for electing the government?
Of course, I am not blaming the people. What I'm only saying here is that lies, fallacies, and falsehood, which is accusing me of saying here, were what characterized the propaganda that they came up with in 20. They were ill-prepared. We saw a president who understood nothing as
so where do we place the people who usually go out to vote, in spite of the messages they hear from politicians?
Well, it's a failure on their part as well. We're expecting them now, and you could see that their determination is coming all out to see what will happen between now and 2027. Nigerians are waking up to the realization that they are the ones that have the responsibility to salvage themselves from this despondency and despair in the land. You will see a different Nigeria, you will see a different nation come 2027. This I can guarantee you, from the activities and from what we have seen. There's no reason for anybody to take Nigerians for granted any further. It is happening even around our neighboring countries. We've seen Niger now salvage itself from the stranglehold of France. We've seen Burkina Faso. We've seen Mali. We've seen even a saner climb, an advanced democracy now. We've seen the protests in the UK. We've seen what has happened in Bangladesh, where a sitting prime minister of over 2 decades was chased out of the presidential villa. People shouldn't be taken for granted. It gets to a level where people will say enough is enough. And I think Nigeria has got to that level.
So the other part of that conversation is this. Yes, at the federal level, lots of questions have to be asked. But the states, we have governors who are almost in all the major political parties in this country in those states. Are the citizens of those states better off in any way?
Yes, of course. We've seen some of the hopes that you could take. For example,
where have we seen it?
Have we seen Lagos State, for example? I give you Lagos State. I give you Kano.
You're playing into me.
No. Let's be honest. I'm not saying that.
Being honest, I would be so glad.
Yes.
He said, let's be honest.
I'm happy to hear that.
I've said Kano. I've said Plateau. I've said Taraba. I have said many of them. We have all of them. I've said Rivers. I've said Bayelsa. I've said Delta.
How?
All of these people, have you seen them crying in the manner that people...
They are protesting on the streets.
The protest is the adverse policies of the federal government as promoted by the APC-led federal at the center.
So you're exonerating state governments from all of this?
What we are saying, are they encountering the level of frustration at the center? No.
Wait.
Let's get this reconciled.
Are you saying that if one is in a state,
yes,
and they elected a state governor, they've got a state house of assembly, who are supposed to ensure that the resources which has increased to the states is utilized properly to improve infrastructure and the economy of citizens in the states? If they protest, they should go and blame the federal government.
No, what I am saying is that the governors themselves have been affected by the adverse policies of the center. You need an inspirational leader at the center for these things to function. Even if the states are doing the best that they are doing, with this kind of rooftop inflation promoted by the central APC, it's not possible that you have the citizens. But the governors are doing the best they could. And I even mentioned opposition government. Look at what is happening in Abia. That's an opposition party, not my party. But there's hope. The governor is doing everything he would do to ameliorate the suffering. as opposed to what obtains in most of the APC-led, which are a majority.
All right, my colleague Ayo is in Lagos, but clearly there are several grounds to cover here, which I'm seeing people saying, look, we haven't even scratched the surface. Ayo.
Well, you know, you have actually started the conversation from where I was going to go, talking about the state. So, Mr. Abdullahi, I'm going to stick with you for a bit. My colleague asked the question whether or not you were exonerating the state governments. Yesterday, Seun Okinbaloye on PoliticsToday, my colleague, was having a conversation with Mr. Falana, and he was detailing the amounts that state governments have collected. He didn't state it's a PDP state or APT state. He just said state governments collect X amount. And in fact, Mr. Falana went back into 2023 and detailed that the state government collected money in the region of trillions. The federal government came out and says more than 5 trillion. Irrespective of whether it's PDP or APC, it doesn't matter. So the question now is, are you still exonerating the state governments? Are you saying that with 5 trillion naira plus, they have done everything they can do to ameliorate the sufferings of the people and ensure that we don't get to the point where we are right now?
That's for you. Saying you seem to be exonerating this.
Can you hear me now, Mr. Abdullahi?
There are states that I have not spoken about, but there are states that are doing fairly well within the confines of, or rather the opportunity of the available resources at their disposal. And I've cited example of one, which is Lagos, and they said I'm playing to no. You be fair, call a spade when you see one. That is the good thing about the PDP. We're not blinded by sentiment or partisanship not to see good when you need to speak for it. I've cited example of states like Oyo, the neighboring states to Lagos, doing very well. You could see the level of hope and confidence in the citizen, inspired by the governor. You've seen what is happening in Plateau. He came and inherited a state that was almost bankrupt, but he was able to resuscitate it in 1 year. He has given hopelessness with the people-oriented policies the governor is churning. So what I'm only saying is that I'm speaking for those states, including Abia, where a different political party is in government, ABGA for that matter, and I'm speaking for it. Then we have even seen Anambra State. Some things are happening in some states, but when you now have a terrible APC-led federal government doing the much that it is doing, the twin maladies of these two policies that the government brought in place as a result of insensitivity, if you permit me, that is what is bringing all of this in. You cannot resume. You needed to have gone into the office to appreciate what the responsibilities are. You wouldn't just go and withdraw subsidy from swearing and the point of taking oath of office. And then you get in there and you are realizing, short of coming to say to Nigerians, go to hell, in the speech of Mr. President the day before yesterday, there was nothing. The speech was empty. But Nigerians expected him to address the problems. The Kenyan example would have served a good impetus for Nigeria, which is that when the people went on the street and told the president and the government that they were not comfortable with the policy,
well,
they reversed some
Mr. Abdullahi,
I
wanted us to speak about the governors, the state governors largely, and to a large extent. Just a moment, if you can hear me, Mr. Abdullahi. Just a moment, if you can hear me, Mr. Abdullahi. Speaking to the issues that the federal government, we have spoken about quite a bit, and I think that you've emphasized that repeatedly. But let us speak to specifics. For instance, most of the time, people say in the various states that they don't even know how the budgets of their states are being executed, and the governors, according to some, are just keeping these things under wraps. For instance, and I think it is something we can go to, what is the position of the PDP on the Supreme Court judgment that ruled financial autonomy for local governments?
I was here just 2 weeks ago on that same subject, right here, and I spoke about our support as a party to that idea. It's a commendable development in our polity. It is one thing that will exonerate these local governments so that they would perform like they used to do in time past.
Okay.
And
well, on that, a quick follow-up to that, Mr. Abdullahi. Just a second. A quick follow-up to that. Are you aware that the governor of your state, who is a member of your political party, doesn't tend to agree with that, and that all the local government chairmen in the states have one way or the other agreed that they do not want to obey the Supreme Court judgment of financial autonomy for local governments?
Not say that. What he was saying is that what he was saying is that the election had held before the judgment came on board. And if the judgment comes, and that judgment is of the federal government, which is, I mean, a Supreme Court, which will now become the law in the country, he is saying that to that extent, it will be deferred to the Supreme Court, which would prevail ultimately. When you have a state law conflicting with the central law, I mean the law of the center or the Constitution of the Federal Republic, which that judgment constitutes now, then the law will give, I mean the state law will give way.
So would you then be advising, just a second, Mr. Abdullahi, in the name of governance, if you can hear me, would you be advising the governor of your state, would you recommend to the governor of your state, who is a member of your party, to that, particularly when the local government chairman of the state say they do not want to, in a way saying they don't want to obey the Supreme Court judgment, they are telling the federal government to pay the money to the state government. Would you advise the state governor to make a statement to that, telling the local government chairman that no, they must obey the Supreme Court judgment and rescind their statements?
The governor is a law-abiding citizen, and to that extent, he will appreciate what the responsibility is before his desk. I don't see him as an individual, and the party does not, see him either as an individual, that would go against, that judgment. Whatever it is that will advance our democracy and will remain within civility, we will promote it, and the governor will do just that. But it's not in my place to advise him. He has a legal attorney general of the state. He is also guided by the Constitution, which he has sworn to uphold. So what you will see in the days ahead will be something that will not go against the expected rules of engagement. The governor will do everything possible to ensure that he advances, the rule of law as provided for in our Constitution.
There are many other issues around that, Mr. Abdullahi, and the very, very instructive question that my colleague Kayla asked you earlier about the role that the PDP and other opposition parties are playing to ensure that the needful is done, not just speaking politics, but as have been advised here, to speak to the issues of governance so that we do not have what the fears that's going on all over the world now. They can be going on everywhere else, but they shouldn't go on in Nigeria, particularly because we have everything it takes to stave such things off. But there is more after this. For now, let's go to the Business Morning on Sunrise Daily Studios to take up the issues there.
Certainly, Ayo, there are always issues to thrash out, national issues, and we'll do a bit here and then head back to the Sunrise Daily studio. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. I'm John Mekwa. We do about 30 minutes of business, beginning from the global oil space, where it's recovered in Asian trade on Tuesday on heightened Middle East tensions, but gains were capped by weak demand. I'll take a look at the number right there. It's been moving red, very red, or green. Well, for this morning, it's not so green, 0.16%. In the green is what we have for Brent, $76.60. A bit of gain compared to what we had yesterday. WTI is $73.37 after going up 0.23%. And of course, that conflict in the Middle East is a major one. Now, Hamas has named its Gaza leader, Yahya Sinwar, as successor to the assassinated former chief Ismail Haniyeh on Tuesday, a move that reinforces the radical path pursued since that October 7 attack on Israel. And also, global oil inventories decreased by around 400,000 barrels per day in the first half of this year. And that's looking at the summary. And this is according to Energy Information Administration of the United States. The estimate was published, and it expects that stockpiles will decline by around 800,000 barrels per day in the second half, which we are already running at this time. We look at the Naira. We know that, yes, that new auction system begins today. CBN auctioning the dollar in the market. But as at yesterday's close, we saw again. I wonder if it's on the news of that new auction system that begins today. News moves the market one way or the other. So we saw the Naira gained yesterday on NAFEM. It gained 0.38% to close at 1,601 Naira, open at 1,607 Naira, 15 kobo. Very close right there to what we have in NAFEX. We're talking about closing the gap right there in these two official markets. So on NAFEX, it closed at 1,601 Naira, 25 kobo after it went up much more, 0.72%. We'll see what will happen. A lot of positive vibes and expectations from this new auction style that the CBN has introduced. But it begins today. We'll see what the Naira will close with today. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Now, talking about the Naira and the central bank. Now, the federal government of Nigeria has launched its Series I domestic USD bond, and it hopes to raise at least $500 million from local and international investors. According to the circular, the bond program has a total size of $2 billion, which can be upsized depending on the issuer's discretion. Of course, at this point is the federal government. The bond has a 5-year tenure, offering a medium-term investment opportunity for investors looking for stable returns. It also states that the bond's coupon rate is benchmarked to be comparable federal government Eurobonds yields, ensuring competitive returns that align with international market standards. And interest payment will be made semi-annually, providing regular income streams to investors and enhancing the bond's appeal. The bond offers bullet repayment at maturity in dollars, ensuring full repayment of the principal amount at the end of the 5-year term. So the bond is open to Nigerians and non-Nigerians residents in the country and in diaspora, as well as qualified institutional investors. It also qualifies as an investment option for pension funds, broadening its investor base and ensuring widespread participation. Investors can subscribe with a minimum amount of $10,000 with additional investment in multiples of $1,000 thereafter. So if you do qualify and you've got the power, you may look the way of the federal government's Eurobond, and it's always a safe investment, but 5 years, as they have noted. Now, let's talk about this and all the macroeconomic happenings in Nigeria. This day with Dr. Josh Bamfo. Dr. Josh Bamfo is the partner and the head of the transfer pricing services practice at Anderson, Nigeria. Perhaps you can tell us some of the expectations at this time. Dr. Bamfo, good morning, and thank you for your time.
Good morning, Ini. Thanks for having me.
So Dr. Bamfo, at this time now, we've seen dust beginning to settle on the protests, at least in most parts of the country. Thankful for that, even though unexpectedly or unfortunately, I meant to say, we've seen some damages. But, it comes back to the issue of fuel subsidy removal. We've seen the Naira trying to find a balance with the new Dutch auction system now reintroduced by the central bank. But, Nigerians are in a haste and asking, when can we begin to see the benefits of these reforms? We had applause from IMF, from the World Bank, for those reforms. When do you think, as an expert, as an economist, when can we begin? When would be a logical time to expect benefit from these reforms?
All right. Thank you very much, Ini. I think just to backtrack a little bit, the major reason why for these protests is because cost of living has become unbearable for the average Nigerian. And how do you measure cost of living? You look at inflation rate as one of the major measures of cost of living. Inflation rate has been on the very high side in recent times. Prior to the current Tinubu government taking over, inflation rate was already on the high side. As of June 2023, inflation rate was around 22.8%. That was just when the current government took over. So the two major reforms that they implemented, unfortunately, had the unintended adverse impact on inflation rate. So one was the removal of fuel subsidies, which meant that the price of fuel at the pumps, was going to go up clearly. And the second was the quest of the CBN to try to bridge the variance between the official market rate of the exchange rate versus the power market rate, by moving from a fixed exchange rate regime to a more floating exchange rate regime, where you allow market forces to determine, the price of forex, which is the exchange rate. Yes, we've been able to achieve one of those goals, which is bridge the gap between the two rates, power market and official rate. However, it has come at a huge cost, which is high volatility of the exchange rate. Now, exchange rate has then, depreciated significantly. The official rate used to be $1 to 460 as of May 2023. Today, it stands at $1 to around 1,600. That is over 300% increase, within a space of a year. That also adds to the cost of living because imported products get impacted, when you have your exchange rate depreciate significantly against the hard currencies. Now, in the quest of the Central Bank of Nigeria to then deal with the high inflation rate, which has moved from, about 22.8% to today, which is around 34.2%, all right, they've had to increase monetary policy rate, which is the interest rate at which the central bank sells, funds to other commercial banks, from 18.5% as of June 2023, and today stands around 26.75%, which means the cost of borrowing has also gone up. So if you look at the three markets, the market for goods and services, inflation determines that clearly cost of living has gone up. You look at the market for funds, cost of borrowing has gone up. You look at the market for forex, exchange rate has gone up. So by and large, cost of living has gone up significantly. Question is, how do we actually alleviate part of this? And remember, at the same time, wages and salaries have not gone up as much, which means that the standard of living of the average Nigerian has gone down. In fact, the economy has not grown at a fast rate. The last data we have, which is Q1 of 2024, GDP growth rate was at 2.98, pretty close to the population growth rate, which means that if you look at it from a per capita point of view, we are pretty stagnant in terms of growth. So really, these are challenging times. Now, in terms of solution, clearly the CBN has done a pretty good job in trying to, do the best they have under their control to curb inflation. But the focus has been on increases in monetary policy rate. What has been my view is that there should be increased focus in terms of stabilizing the exchange rate, because the exchange rate has the potential of affecting other key areas of the economy, including inflation itself. So, for example, fuel subsidy has led to fuel prices going up. However, this problem has been actually worsened by the fact that our exchange rate has weakened and we need to import significant portions of these petroleum products. And with the weakening of the naira against dollar, that makes the price of fuel products at the pump even more expensive. So you have two major forces working here. Removal of fuel subsidy, that makes the prices of fuel at the pump go up, and the weakening of the naira, that also makes the price go up. So you can see the two forces working in tandem. Once again, if you look at other imports, once you have a weakening naira, that is going to make it expensive. So from my perspective, if we're really going to curb this inflation rate, in a relatively short term, the focus cannot be predominantly on just increasing monetary policy rate. There should be increased focus on also ensuring that the exchange rate doesn't further weaken. And that's the reason why I've been of the view that moving away from a fixed exchange rate to the other extreme, which is floating exchange rate regime, where there isn't much guidance in terms of where the CBN wants the exchange rate to be, for me, will not really solve the inflation rate problem in the short term. However, there should be a middle ground. There should be some management of the floating exchange rate regime. I believe that if the CBN was committed to ensuring that the exchange rate hovers within a reasonable band, such as 1,000 to 1,200 naira to $1, and that's everything possible, including intervening on a consistent basis to maintain it within that band. it will be able to take out significantly the speculative activities of speculators who anticipate that the Naira is going to depreciate over time, and then demand so much within the short term with the intention of gaining when the Naira further depreciates.
So Dr. Banfo, the thing is removal of fuel subsidy, but even as we speak, we do know from numbers and perspectives and calculation that subsidy is still being paid. Then on the other hand, floating of the exchange rate, we've seen many interventions from the central bank. So, I mean, it's actually managed, so it's not really like we're still looking at the real value of the Naira. So the question is, was it really worth it? And what are the benefits, or what benefits can Nigerians expect, after going through this hardship?
So clearly, when you do an auction, right, the whole idea is that it's going to be based on demand and supply. However, when you determine that I'm going to make sure that I manage the exchange rate within a band, not fixed, right? There's a difference between fixing it to a specific price, which was the previous governor's position, where we fixed the Naira to, the Naira to the dollar at a particular rate, such as 460, and it stays at that particular rate for a significant period of time. But if you can manage it within a band, what it does is it manages the expectations of investors as well as speculators in the market. Today, yes, there's some intervention. Yes, the Central Bank of Nigeria sells dollars to the banks as well as some BDCs. However, there's no communication in terms of where they expect the price to be. And that is the biggest difference. We all know how the central banks across the world impacts, the expectations of investors. We saw that even in the US, when the Fed delayed in cutting down interest rates, and we saw how on Monday, stock prices behaved, all right? So all these investors make decisions based on their expectations. They speculate. Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria can manage those expectations or those speculations and can be able to deal with some of the speculative activities in the market. Until they do that, what is going to happen is, yes, you are intervening, yes, you are supplying as much as possible, but you are still subject to the demand and supply forces, and there's a big chunk of demand which is being driven by speculators that you cannot actually manage. And that is what is leading to the Naira further depreciating. And as long as the Naira continues to depreciate, it's going to be very difficult for us to bring price stability, achieve price stability by the CBN. In other words, bring inflation rates down. Yes, Central Bank of Nigeria is doing a good job in terms of increasing monetary policy rate, but it comes at a huge cost to the economy itself. When the cost of borrowing keeps going up, investors cannot borrow as much, in order to expand their businesses or even start new businesses. And that doesn't create a lot of job opportunities. That worsens the standard of living of the average Nigerian. Coupled with the high cost of living, that creates misery within the economy, and that leads to such protests. So I think it's very important that CBN considers tweaking its policy to now focus a little bit more on exchange rate as opposed to their significant focus on monetary policy rate in order to achieve price stability.
All right, sir, Dr. Josh Banfo, thank you for that suggestion. We do hope that the listen and perhaps maybe play around with it and see if it works. Dr. Josh Banfo is partner and head of the transfer pricing services practice at Anderson, Nigeria. Thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Ini.
Let's take a break. When we come back, I will also continue, somewhat on that line. Credit to private sector, those loans, how are they doing? How are small businesses dealing at this time? We'll talk about that after the break. Just stay with us.
Hello, Mr. James. We're having some issues with the supply. Hello?
This is why I recommend Conga Corporate. Why get worked up when Conga Corporate is working? As companies strategize to save cost and increase profitability, Conga Corporate is your structured partner to supply all products your company needs nationwide. Conga Corporate, we save you time and money. Contact us at corporatesales@conga.com. End your power struggles with iPower Solution. Inverters, solar panels, and batteries. With hybrid inverters ranging from 1,200 watts all-in-one to a whopping 500 kilowatts. iPower is designed and produced by certified renewable energy experts from 5 countries in partnership with Zynos Technologies, specifically for Africa. Durable and cost-efficient power solution for your home, small offices, and large enterprises. What you see is what you get. Order now on Congo.com or any of our authorized distributors for same-day delivery in most cities in Nigeria. Terms and conditions apply. iPower. Empower tomorrow. Today.
Mr. James, we're having some issues with the supply. Hello?
This is why I recommend Conga Corporate. Why get worked up when Conga Corporate is working? As companies strategize to save costs and increase profitability, Conga Corporate is your structured partner to supply all products your company needs nationwide. Conga Corporate, we save you time and money. Contact us at corporatesales@conga.com.
Welcome back. Now, Nigeria's credit to the private sector recorded a decline of approximately 9.65 trillion naira. That's from February to March this year. And this is directly linked to that hawkish stance of the Central Bank of Nigeria, that 700 basis points hike on the MPR so far. The credit and monetary statistics data from the CBN indicates a 12% month-on-month decrease in credit allocation to the private sector. And this figure shows that it went from 80.86 trillion naira in February to 71.21 in March. What does this mean? What exactly, or who is feeling the pinch of this? Let's speak to the co-founder of Vendor Credit. Mr. Oluseyi Shetan joins us virtually from Lagos. Mr. Shetan, thank you for your time. Good morning.
Thank you for having me, Elaine. Pleasure speaking to you.
Great. So tell us exactly how or where this is pinching. I mean, the last guest, I wonder if you listened, I was talking about the CBN. Obviously, we've seen they've been aggressive about dealing with inflation through the hike of MPR. You deal with the credit and the small businesses. How and where exactly has this been pinching so far?
Well, it pinches everywhere. The last speaker spoke extensively about, what has led us to where it is that we are. And he has also emphasized on the fact that, these challenges are deeply felt by businesses. If it was easy doing business before, now it's tough. Corporate borrowings from the banks, as you have reeled out, has reduced significantly from the 80 trillion that it was in February of this year down to about 74 trillion. Even corporate bond issuances have dropped significantly as well. I think as at the last figures that we had, they did just about $1 billion in the whole of H1 of 2024. And we've seen that decrease occur in even commercial paper issuances as well, down to about 503 billion for the whole of H1 of 2024, compared to over 800 trillion for the 800 billion for the same period of 2023. So you can imagine the impact of that on all the costs that corporates are having to deal with. On the supply side, we've seen a jump up in transportation costs, obviously off the back of the removal of the fuel subsidy. We've seen production costs go up as well because of the import dependence of some of the raw materials that we use to manufacture in the space as well. On the demand side, we've also seen challenges because purchasing power hasn't increased for your consumers, and off the back of that, what they're able to purchase from you, has decreased. So you might see revenues go up, obviously because of adjustments in price, but when you're talking about quantity consumed, you see a decline in that. And you see companies having to start looking at innovative ways, to be able to manage their costs, because that cost they're incurring has to go somewhere. The buyers can't, the consumers can't take that cost fully. So the company has to incur some of that cost and then pass it on with the vendors in which they do business with, and also find innovative ways in which they can somewhat reduce their cost of production without necessarily impacting on the quality of the products in which they're pushing out. So these are really, really tough times for companies in the private sector in Nigeria. Mm-hmm.
So it does sound like, even as I think you hinted, is businesses have found innovative ways to survive, because even the PMI for July did show that purchasing cost is increasing, but purchasing is still also increasing. So perhaps there are some strategies that or innovations that have been adopted that is helping businesses to survive.
Yeah, so a lot of guys are starting to look for alternatives. If you have imported items, you need to start looking for local substitutes in which you can use to replace that. People are having to look at, complementary products in which they can use to sell the items that they are selling in a bid to just drive overall sales volumes. There's a lot of credit that is going out to distributors, which are the guys that are buying the items, such that at the end of the day, the products are able to get into the hands of the people that need it. So it's a lot of innovation. Partnerships have become very critical as well. Traditional guys that typically wouldn't look at fintechs, for instance, to do business with them, that door has been opened because they are more nimble and they are slimmer and able to also be at the forefront of innovation. So we see those collaborations occurring just to ensure that at the end of the day, businesses are able to weather the storm that exists. And we've seen the impact of not choosing to go that route as well. We've seen over this year alone, we've seen multinationals exit the country. We've seen Kimberly-Clark, just to mention a few, GSK, even Microsoft, right? The tech innovation giants have had to pull out of the country as well. But what that does ultimately for everyone is that it also creates opportunities for local participators, players and entrepreneurs to come into those spaces and try and fill the voids that have been created by the exit of those multinationals. So those are some of the things in which we're seeing happening in the space that are, trying to address the challenges, enable businesses to overcome or find reasonable ways in which they can work around the challenges that the harsh economic environment in Nigeria currently presents.
But what's this doing to the supply chain landscape in Nigeria? Which way is it going? How is it changing?
Oh, it's tough. If it was tough before, it's much more tougher right now. Energy is a major driver of cost, right? When you're trying to do logistics. And supply chains are also heavily dependent on logistics, whether you're bringing the items into your warehouse for production or you're taking it out to the distributors for final distribution to the consumers. So we've seen, those costs go up as well. FX, for instance, has its own impact as well, because all the spare parts that your logistics guys use, they have to import those items. And with FX, almost doubling from what it was, even at the parallel market to the official rate, it just makes it a lot more difficult. We've also seen a lot of companies. In the past, companies had maybe payment terms between their vendors of, say, 30 days, but they've had to go innovative and say, you have to increase this tenor. So instead of 30 days, we're seeing tenors being increased to 60 to 90 days. And, margins are still trying to be held as tight as possible just to ensure that, the companies can survive. So it's really, and we can see the final impact as well in the final price of the goods that are being consumed. We've seen all beverages, even flour and all the items that people consume, right, reflect the increased cost in the supply chain. So that's where the situation currently is regarding that.
Do we have more incidents of bad debts, missed timelines for debt servicing? Do you have a record of something like that?
Could you come again on that, please?
I mean, all of this, has it resulted in maybe more bad debts or timelines being missed when it comes to debt servicing as the MPR increases?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, when you increase interest rates, it's a confirmed and proven fact that when you increase interest rates, typically your defaults increase as well, asset quality reduces. And that's because, that cost has to find somewhere in which it could be borne. And, by virtue of what's going on in the economy, where there's a general, when there's a general inflation situation and, general economic hardship, people have to sell for them to be able to generate cash flows to be able to repay on their obligations. So defaults are obviously going to go up. In line with what we've seen happen on the pricing on the interest rates. So defaults are definitely going to go up. So everybody now needs to start thinking around sectors in which, identifying sectors where opportunities lie, right, that are somewhat resilient to the overall impact of what's going on in the economy, or not as impacted as many others would be. And that's where you want to concentrate your credit as it is right now. And in terms of timing, like you rightly said,
would that be the fintechs? Would that be the fintechs?
Pardon?
Would that be the fintechs? They're supposed to bring solution at times like this.
Oh yes, the fintechs are currently at the forefront of innovation because obviously we are trying to penetrate into the market. So a lot of the traditional ways in which lending used to occur have to be reviewed. You need to look at creating new parameters, right? In addition to some of the ones that you already have, to source on data from the clients that you want to lend to. And then off the back of that, involve artificial intelligence as well as proprietary algorithms that exist that are developed in-house to be able to, determine what the new credit analysis structure should look like and what the new credit scores for customers should look like. Fintechs are still, in front of that.
All right. All right, thank you so much. A lot of work for the fintechs, an opportunity also for them to shine. There's always an opportunity. Making lemonade out of lime. Thank you so much, Mr. Oluseyi Shaitan, co-founder of Vendor Credits, for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Amy.
All right, so just a little bit of the markets now before we head back. Yesterday was another red day, dropping further for the all-share index. 96,000 now is what we have, 96,928.52 after it lost 0.67%. Equities cap also dropped. That's 371 billion naira shaved off the market right there, even though there was a positive for banking, consumer goods. But I think that it was the industrial goods that really brought down the market yesterday because it was down 3.69%. We'll give you details and intraday numbers at 1 p.m. Ladi Williams will be here with Aniti Ede. Let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studios.
Well, thank you so much. So let's get back to that of course, the effect of all of good governance or a lack of it is what we have been discussing, and we still have our two guests, Mr. Abdullahi and Mr. Oniru, with us this morning. So let me remain with you, Mr. Abdullahi, to the conversation we were having the other time. There's been an increase in clamor for attention to be paid to the activities of state governments. For instance, on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning, that was seriously highlighted, saying that 5-point-something trillion naira had been paid to the governors over the years, and it would look like no one is really giving them attention. If I quote it correctly, citizens wallow in misery as governors cede duties to FG amid 5.34 trillion naira cuts. How would you respond to the call by citizens for more engagement by their governments? Because to a large extent, everyone knows what policies the federal governments are putting out, but very, very little is known by the people, with even less level of engagement at the state level.
Could you say that again? I didn't get the beginning of the question.
Okay. I was just calling your attention to the fact that there's been increasing clamor for attention to be paid to the states, citing the example on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning, which references FAC allocations and says that citizens wallow in misery as governors cede their duties to the federal government amid 5.34 trillion naira cut. So one wonders, shouldn't we be asking for more? I mean, you said the other time that the governors are doing the best they can. 5.34 trillion naira within a very short time. You think they have done enough?
Well, I think the citizens of these states should hold their governors responsible. That is what is behoven of them. They have state assemblies in all of these states, and the citizens are there themselves to keep vigil. It is good development that this information is made available to the citizens in these respective states. So they should follow up and know what their governors are doing with these resources. They should hold them accountable. But thus far, we have some governors, like I cited examples, doing fairly well, and that's why we spoke for them. But all of these things will derive inspiration from the central government. And of course, again, I would call on the central government to follow further, not what we saw under Buhari, where you just assign somebody and you will not investigate what he is doing. You're satisfied. If Tinubu and his APC-led government, President Tinubu and his APC-led government, wants to hold the governors accountable with the resources they have given them, then the citizens should also play their part in ensuring that that is achieved collectively. So to be honest with you, we expect that the citizens will do that, and the houses of assemblies in this respective state will follow suit.
It says in the first quarter of this year, 7.09 trillion naira was made available to federating entities. And that's quite a significant thing. And 12% of the world's population are living in extreme poverty in Nigeria. 12% of people living in extreme poverty all over the world are living in Nigeria. That data also came out. And it was talking especially about the states. And we heard that a good number of them are living in the northern part of Nigeria. It calls to attention whether or not, in your view, the governors at the subnational levels are doing anything. If you can give us an example of what you think the state governments, particularly in the northern parts of Nigeria, are doing anything significantly to bring down the poverty figures in their states. They have what they can do. Otherwise, we wouldn't have governors. Money is committed to them. Resources are committed to them. Do you think they're doing enough to bring down those poverty figures in their states?
I have not spoken for the governors, Ayo, and I have not accepted that they are doing well enough. I'm only saying that some of them, within what we know, is in the public arena. That is the resources at their disposal. They are doing fairly well. And I cited examples with a few. Now, if what we are getting to hear lately from the federal government through the Minister of Information, that such amount of money was made available to them recently, and then you are churning out the figures to corroborate that argument, then the citizens should hold these governors responsible. And the houses of assembly should also do their constitutional role by not playing or pandering at the doorstep of the governors. Because we appreciate that a number of them are brought into office courtesy patronage through maybe they are the voice of the governors, and that's what obtains in most of the states. So they don't get to check the books of the governors. Of course, the governors are enjoying immunity now. You will not expect anybody to, infringe on the rights and their fundamentals as provided for by law. But again, those who are assigned to do it, like the houses of assembly, and of course the citizens of the state, should say, we have received this information, this amount of money was allocated to our state this month. What have you been able to do? They can hold the governor. They can go on public. They can go to the media. Media organization is always open to assisting them towards making this thing public. By the time they consistently pursue this thing and remain tenacious, with the argument, the governors will be compelled to do their bidding, because in the first place, that's their responsibility. That's why they are in the office. Citizens have a duty, and I agree with you, they are not doing enough in some places, but citizens have a duty to mandate these governors, to perform excellently. Otherwise, the essence will be defeated. But all of it, again, would receive inspiration from the central government, as I earlier stated.
Well, before I go to Mr. Isaonilu, let me just ask you this, just one question. Everyone who has been elected into office in the 36 states of Nigeria and 774 local governments of the country, they were elected on the platform of a political party for a reason. The political parties have a role to play in ensuring good governance in the state. Don't you agree?
I agree absolutely. And that's why every party is guided by a manifesto. And the governor would have campaigned to the citizens, the same thing a local government chairman does, the same thing a president does alongside their deputies, you know, to be able to attract the favors. Now, as a party, we hold meetings intermittently. Of course, you know, the Governors Forum is alive. I mean, PDP Governors Forum, like the APC Governors Forum, like every other political party's Governors Forum. And then, of course, we have the General Governors Forum themselves, where all of these issues are deliberated. But as our party does, we call them always to review their performances in line with the assurances that they gave us when picking the form. And then we follow it up with supervision of their activities. It's not enough for you to just listen to a governor. You go to the states, even though they commissioned these projects, we have seen them. You've seen the performance of the governor of Adamawa, which I did not cite as an example earlier. You've seen what is happening with the governor of Akwa Ibom, doing more than enough, and the citizens are expressing delight in what has, even though that has been consistent, even from the days of the sitting Senate President, Governor Akpabio, as he was then. So certainly we are following up. The parties have responsibility to check the activities of this governor as the platform with which under which they were elected. And so we're doing more than enough in that regard.
All right. Well, let me come to you, Mr. Isaonilu. You were talking to us the other time about what your agency is doing in the area of enlightening people, giving Nigerians the necessary orientation. With these protests all over the nation, it would seem like the protests, the enlightenment or the orientation engagement that your agency has been doing isn't cutting it. Otherwise, people would actually be the ones campaigning in favor of whatever it is that you are talking about here now, as opposed to you having to do this job of telling us what you're doing. What are the challenges, if there are, that you can say, okay, the agency is encountering these challenges? What's been the feedback from the local governments that you say you have been reaching to, and how effective has that been for you in ensuring that Nigerians have the adequate orientation? So otherwise we shouldn't have had this kind of protests all over the nation.
Well, let me say again, as I started, that about 3 decades now, that agency was completely abandoned. It was nothing to even talk about completely, But in the last 10 months thereabout, and especially since this government came into place, there's so much emphasis now on orientation. And it's taken us all this time to create a lot of platforms of engagement, and also to rejig the system. The staff, for instance, the establishment staff for NOA was 7,000, now less than 4,000 staff. In many of the local governments, we have only 1 staff, left there. So over the last 3 decades, a lot has happened that NOA has completely almost, been incapacitated. But things are changing. In the last 10 months, we've done a lot. I've been to 17 states to meet with a lot of stakeholders, the traditional rulers, the religious leaders. We have put in place blueprints, getting different segments of the society, blueprints on the National Identity Project, under which we have the National Values Charter. Because it's like you can discuss Christianity or Islam without the Quran and Bible. How would that be? We don't have any value system, I will continue to say that, in this country. So when you don't have that value system, it is difficult for people to even know what their responsibilities are. So now I can tell you that NOA is now up and doing. We have the explainer that we spoke about, which is targeted at the elite. Like I told you, that we have data of artisanal and trade associations in all local governments in Nigeria, and we are reaching out to them through our local government staff that we call community orientation and mobilization officers. They are doing advocacy visits. to stakeholders. They are meeting with market women, meeting with, barber, tailors association, and all of that. So we are doing all of that. But the real, issue is that the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, since he came on board, it is not by accident that you have the Ministry of Information and National Orientation. It used to be Ministry of Information and Culture. No, there's now emphasis on orientation. And the work we are doing at NOA, the president is deeply concerned about it and is doing a lot. And in a couple of weeks, 1 month, 2 months, Nigerians will see the difference for what we have done in the last 10 months in terms of rejigging the system. So they will see it. The National Identity Project itself will be unveiled by the president in a few weeks' time. He will unveil it, and then they will roll out all this to engage with the people. But let me go back to saying that, you see, it is difficult to talk to a people who have, for several years, been let down. Nigerians feel let down. And when that situation has come, the first question they will ask you is, another promise that will not be kept. So we must prove to Nigerians that this government is keeping to the promises. And that's why I want to advise us, all of us that are involved in information dissemination. Anybody who is making demand of subsidy removal should be brought back is making an emotional demand, not an economic demand. Because you have to also prove that if it is brought back, it will solve the issue of poverty. It will not. It will aggravate it. So what we should be doing is, how do we survive in spite of the removal? And so we need to promote all the effort of this government to ensure that we survive without that subsidy. And I speak to the local government, which my brother here referred to earlier, and he commended this government. I think that's about the biggest thing that has happened to this country in the last 3 decades, that autonomy for local government. I can tell you clearly that that's
Mr. Onuru, just one moment. Yeah. On that same issue that you're mentioning, one of the natural reactions a good number of people will have, when we speak about whether or not people will trust the government, why should people trust any government? And right now, we're not just talking about the federal government, we're talking about state governments as well, as Mr. Abdullahi has mentioned, and even the local government administrations. Over the years, they come, they campaign, and the only time some people see any semblance of governance is any semblance of any government official in their environment. It's only during elections. So when you come and you make any promises to them, why should they believe you? How should this government, or any government at that, particularly at the state level, be engaging their people? What role can the NOA play in helping the state governments to communicate with the people? Because this is not just about the federal government, as you have said, and I think Mr. Abdullahi has also agreed with you. It's in the states where the people live. So how should the NOA, for instance, be collaborating with the state governments to put out word as to whatever it is that they have and the word that they will keep to the people?
Yeah, let me say that the easiest thing to do is to allow people to lose hope. When they have lost hope, it is difficult to bring it back. When there's no trust, to bring it back is always very difficult. That's why government must be careful at every level to ensure that people don't have any reason to lose hope in what they are doing. Let me repeat again that the act that set up NOA makes it a 3-tier agency. We represent the federal government, the state government, and the local government, irrespective of political parties. So our local government offices are working with the local government authorities, no matter what political party. And on a daily basis, in fact, most of our staff are resident in the local government council secretariat itself in the state, working with them in all their programs. The state also, we are working with all the state governments, irrespective of political parties, and promoting whatever activities they are doing to the people. But our law also says we must get feedback for government. So every 2 weeks, a sign on what we call Pulse of the Nation, which is sent to the president, the vice president, the NSA, the service chiefs. And now we're expanding to all the governors in the country.
There's a pause for the nation. From a viewer. Feedback. DG, Ibikunle. Guys, can we see it? This is what he said. What?
It's the way you said it.
It's DG Ibikunle's message I'm about to read.
Okay, go ahead.
He said, the NOA hasn't been visible. Let them engage people more. All the government policies weren't spread by NOA. I'm hearing for the first time about the explainer.
Okay, yeah. The explainer, we had the 20th edition. But like I said, the 20th edition last Friday. It comes out every Friday. But like I said, it is not the only thing we are doing. Because this is a country where you have the youth population, dominant population is the youth. So you have the age 35 and below, about 75% of our population. And their playing field is the social media. So you cannot reach them with the explainer. So for instance, that generation, how do you engage with them? They want fun around whatever you are doing with them. So you have to create that. They want to be incentivized, whatever you are doing. So just
incentivized or make it look exciting.
Yeah, that's what delivery. Yeah. So what did we do? To get them to know what is going on. So we have to meet them halfway. Just 3 weeks ago, we did what we call gamification quiz, where we have 100 set of questions about government policies. So we launch it. It was on a Friday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. You go there, you play the quiz, and you answer questions based on what government is doing. We also have AI voice assistant now in NOA, that you can even ask the AI voice assistant about the question, and it will give you the answer on any government policy.
Is there a slogan? Is there a slogan for the NOA in this administration?
I'm coming. Please let me wrap up on this. So when you play the quiz, you win airtime instantly. Okay. That is the incentive to get you to come and learn about what the government is doing. So, and that is just one. We have series of platforms and engagement vehicles that we are using depending on the media habits of that particular audience segment. Now, on the slogan, the first thing I said when I resumed office is that we can the easiest way out is to start throwing slogans. We have had a lot of slogans in this country. Did they solve the problem? You had, Andrew, please don't check out. You had Nigeria, good people, good nation. You have change begins with me. Of course, there will be slogan, but they are not the solutions. The solution is
not about it being a solution. Sorry, Mr. Larry. It's about visibility, because that's what we're seeing in the messages.
I'm coming.
Some people are saying that they don't even know that the NOA has been around all this.
Yeah, of course.
Since we came into office.
Yeah, for 3 decades, NOA is completely almost dead. Almost. And that's what we are doing now to bring it back.
Okay.
Yes, and that's why we are creating all these platforms of engagement. And like I said, in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, because the president has done a lot now to help NOA to be active. So in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, people will begin to now see a lot of activities going on. But about the slogan, we spoke to the National Identity Project. You have to build slogan around value system. And so that's what the president is unveiling. And that's why I'm not going to, come up to say this is what the slogan is. But we have that. That's why I said there's a blueprint that we are going to unveil. And when it's unveiled, then the campaign, it's not just going to be Nigerian campaign. It's a global campaign about our identity, about who we are, about our value system, about what we represent, so that anybody who acts contrary to that, we can say this person is not representing us. So that's what we are doing about all of that. So, but our job, like I said, is two-way. We disseminate government information, we generate feedback on every 2 weeks back to the government. As I speak now, the one for that ends on July, whatever, is on my table.
So you basically get the pulse of the people, and you're the one that communicates it to the president.
Yeah.
Many Nigerians will say that you've been communicating wrongly to him, because the last time they heard him speak, it does feel like he, at least for some people, that he felt he sounded detached from the Nigerian people, like he wasn't a part of Nigerians, not seeing the sufferings of the people. Can Nigerians hold you responsible for that?
Well, I actually do not agree with that opposition that the president does not feel the pulse or what the people are going through. He has said it repeatedly. But even, because he's a man of foresight, even before his election, he said there will be protests. Because he would take decisions that past presidents ran away from, which they all knew was the solution. He would take those decisions that would be protest, because he had gone through it in Lagos. He got to Lagos 1999 as governor. He came up with reforms that people protested.
So why does he say we shouldn't protest now?
But now, people of Lagos will look back and say, oh, so that's why he did all these things in 1999, up until 2000.
I want to be able to.
So now,
because we have just 7 minutes to go.
Extend it.
I should extend it. I want to be able to talk about nationhood and the role of the NOA in nationhood. I know it does seem like we're not speaking a lot to the PDP, but it's because, a lot of questions have come in about your office. The job of your office in creating a sense of nationhood where we are actually a nation, not just a country, and where we see things in our nation as ours and actually believe in it. What roles have you played since you came in as NOA DG in fostering that mindset?
Okay, so to create that nationhood, because like I agree with you that we are a country and we have to take that journey to nationhood. To do that, you must have a value system. That is what led to the National Identity Project. You cannot legislate upon patriotism. You can't enforce it. You must motivate it. You must create conditions for people to love their country. And that's why there are two differences from what past governments have done in terms of orientating Nigeria compared to what this government is doing. One is that in the past, all efforts were geared towards the citizens. Citizens must do this. Citizens must do that. But this government says no. It takes two to fix this. Leadership must also put something on the table. There must be commitment from both sides to say, okay, this is what the leadership is doing. And these are the parameters to judge the leaders. And the citizens, these are what the reciprocal responsibilities are. And upon those parameters, to also judge citizenship. That is one thing that was missing. So that's why it is a charter. We call it National Values Charter, because it's an agreement between the leadership and the citizen. So when this is unveiled, the leaders, people who are in leadership position, will see what their responsibilities are. And those are going to be the parameters to hold them accountable. The same thing for the citizens. You mentioned the duty of care the last time we were talking. It's one of that. Then again, the second thing that had always been missing is that you can put up a good slogan. You can put up a value system. But there must be institutions that you create to nurture citizens to be able to imbibe those values, including those who will become governors tomorrow, those who will become president tomorrow. Everybody must grow up nurtured on those values.
Or else they'll change it to hunger, this slogan.
Exactly.
Mr. Abdullah, give us your concluding thoughts about all of this, because right now, even as we speak, there are people who still think that, look, with the removal of subsidy, with the way the economy is, with the non-performance of the state governors, with the attention or expectation from local governments, a lot needs to be done across all levels of governance to ensure that the people feel the impact of governance.
Well, ours is to call on the federal government, and it is important the federal government appreciates that everything that needs to be done will end on the table of the president. And the table of the president involves the governors, the senators, the ministers, and all of those persons he employed, including my brother, Larry.
What about the governors?
Of course, I mentioned the governors. I said the governors, the senators, and the ministers.
Oh, okay.
Now, it is important to appreciate that it's a national responsibility that all of us must, deliver. But the president should, like he had always done before becoming the president, remember the protest he led during the military. Only recently, a video was viral by the former minister of the APC, Solomon Dalong, who was saying that it was the same Tinubu that was inviting them over as students to Lagos for them to protest under the bridges in the days of the military.
All right.
He did that as a private citizen or a leader of the party in 2012, and he has maintained consistently that protest is within the rights and privileges, provided for by law to the citizens. Now again, the citizens are protesting hunger. So he must deliberately put a policy in place. And one of it is rescinding the decision that some of those demands these people came up with, it would not have escalated to the level it is today if the president had only yielded to their demands and at least withdraw some of the things that he has put in place.
I want to thank both of you for coming on. Larry Issa Onilu is the Director General, National Orientation Agency, and Ibrahim Abdullahi, Deputy National Publicity Secretary of the PB. Thank you, both of you, for particularly waiting longer than it was supposed to be originally. I appreciate both of you for coming on. But above all else, federal, state, and local government, all of them need to do a lot more, all of them. Well, we have some messages. We'll just take some of them. This is from Peter Olusonjo talking about changing the nation. He says the behavior of citizens will not change until politicians stop using their influence to obstruct the consequences of their actions, as well as those of the general public. Politicians are a significant contributor to the growing unpatriotism among citizens. They must allow justice to prevail in all aspects of governance, ensuring that no one is above the law without consequences for wrongdoing. He goes on to say that.
Olatubosun Ajayi says, since our politicians of whatever political inclination have proved to be bad losers, I think we should consider carefully if it's morally right for one who had either contested elections under political parties or demonstrated political partisanship to still parade himself or herself as a human rights activist. I think we can take one more. Taufik Odetunde says, okay, so Taufik, I can see you and Olamu, you are from Ibadan. But before we go, you know, they said your Twitter handle is not functional for the NOA.
It is. I can tell you it is. All our handles are functional, completely.
Okay. Just go and take the quiz and win your prize. Ayo, is that you? Okay, there you go. All right, that wraps it up. Well, thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Train Bell and so goodbye.
Have a nice day ahead. I'm Kayla Magwa.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Bye for now.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopEx TV.
Tired of pans that scratch and stick? Or cookware that takes up valuable space in your kitchen? Introducing ShopEx Gotham Hammered Copper Collection, the perfect cookware to upgrade your cooking experience. The Gotham Hammered Copper Collection features a super durable ultra non-stick surface. Eggs stick to other pans, but with the Hammered Copper Collection, they slide right out. Incredible! It's oven safe up to 500 degrees. Any recipe can be made in these pans, and then it wipes clean with ease. Make mouth-watering jollof rice or even fluffy pounder with ease, because nothing sticks.
I needed a cookware to keep up with me. The Gotham Hammered Collection has been a game changer. No more burnt meals or hours spent scrubbing pots.
You could be paying over $490,000 for a collection of pans that are not even